tonight.
I've got this guy standing over there looking at me, talking about New York values with scorn in his face, with hatred of New York.
Donald Trump and Ted Cruz trade jabs in the battle for New York State.
If you want to know what liberal democratic values are, follow Donald Trump's checkbook.
Monica Crowley, Herman Cain, Ebony Williams are all here tonight with reactions. Then, in a Hannity exclusive, David Webb exposes who the left-wing agitators are protesting outside of Trump's New York rally.
I don't think that you are qualified if you get $15 million from Wall Street through your super PAC.
And Bernie Sanders slamming Hillary Clinton as unfit to be president as the Democratic race turns nasty. Plus, Hillary Clinton tries to be one of the people. She rides the New York subway, but she's never used the Metro card before. Slight problem. Hannity starts right here, right now.
And welcome to Hannity. And tonight, the New York primaries are only 12 days away, and the Republican candidates are hitting the campaign trail hard in the battle for the state's 95 delegates. Now, Donald Trump, he had a huge rally on Long Island last night and took a major shot at Senator Ted Cruz for his, quote, New York values comments. Take a look.
Do you remember during the debate when he started lecturing me on New York values like we're no good? I looked at him and started talking about our incredible police, our incredible firefighters, our incredible people, our unbelievable construction workers. Who could have done that? Who could have rebuilt that hole? There was never anything like it in this country. The worst attack in the history of the United States. The bravery that was shown was incredible. We all lived through it. We all know people that died. And I've got this guy standing over there looking at me, talking about New York values with scorn in his face, with hatred of New York.
Now, despite the criticism from Trump Senator Ted Cruz, he's not shying away from attacking the GOP frontrunner. Let's take a look.
Our friends in the media tell us that Donald Trump is unstoppable in New York State. Oddly enough, our friends in the media are very comfortable with a New York liberal who has supported Andrew Cuomo and Hillary Clinton and Chuck Schumer for decades. And they really want to see a general election between two New York liberals who agree on Washington being the center of the universe.
All right, here with reaction, the author of The Right Problems, Fox News contributor Herman Cain, also with us, Fox News contributors Monica Crowley and Ebony Williams. All right, let's start with taking a look at the polls. Home court advantage, New York. Latest poll, we've got Monmouth University, Trump 52, Kasich 25, Cruz 17. If you look at the Quinnipiac poll in Pennsylvania, it's Trump 39, Cruz 30, Kasich 24. And California, it's Trump 39, Cruz 32, Kasich 18. All right, Ebony, does the New York values issue hurt Cruz in New York?
I think it does big time, Sean. Look, I think that is a slam dunk for Donald Trump. He gets to tout the resilience of New York City. I'm a new New Yorker. I happen to like these New York values. But I think he was doing something.
I don't like the New York taxes thing, but that's a different story.
Well, we're in different tax brackets, Sean. Just kidding. Here's the thing. I think I got that Ted Cruz was insinuating something more than that. I think that he was trying to very delicately lump Donald Trump into being a social liberal, if nothing else, and kind of equating him to Chuck Schumer and to de Blasio and to Cuomo. And I think that that is, remember the timing. He was talking in South Carolina. And I think that he was certainly talking to that base and saying, this guy is an outsider. He's not one of us. He's not a conservative. He's a liberal.
Monica, if you look at the argument that goes back and forth between Cruz and Trump, Cruz points out Trump's past political positions, and Trump is saying, well, no, I'm a conservative. These are my values. This is what I represent. I'd never run for office before. So he calls him lying Ted because he feels his positions are being misrepresented. Is either one of those two actually winning that argument?
That's an interesting question, Sean. I think maybe both arguments are being neutralized at this point. Maybe there was some traction on both sides early on, but now it's almost a stale line of rhetorical fire, I think, for both of them. Look, of the remaining 5 candidates in this race on both sides, 3 of them have already won their home states. John Kasich in Ohio, Ted Cruz in Texas, Bernie Sanders in Vermont. That leaves the state of New York for both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Must-win state for the two of them in about a week and a half. Donald Trump is aiming for over 50% of the vote, because if he does that, Sean, then he walks away with all of the delegates. Ted Cruz knows he's likely not to win New York State, but what he'd like to do is score enough so that he can walk away from the state with at least some delegates and put a dent into sort of the invincibility argument, at least in New York State, of Donald Trump.
But then that also now raises the question, Herman Cain, why is John Kasich in the race? Because John Kasich, you got to argue, if he pulls, what is he running now in New York? 25%. He gets that 25%. That probably hurts the odds of Donald Trump getting over that 50% threshold.
It's probably going to be an open or contested convention. Kasich is staying in for leverage. And with respect to Donald Trump and the label that Cruz is trying to put on him, the people that are supporting Donald Trump don't care about labels. What Cruz is trying to do is to say that Donald Trump is a liberal because of people he supported in the past. As Monica said, that is neutralized. People don't care about that. They care about 3 things, Sean, that I continue to see and hear every day. No, not that
sorry, I couldn't resist.
Hey, at least I got your name right tonight, Sean, my friend.
Yeah, that's true.
They care about a fighter,
Go ahead.
a winner, and a leader.
That's hilarious.
But that's what people are looking at. They are not focusing on labels.
Yeah.
And Cruz tries to pin Trump with a label, and it simply is not going to work with the people that are supporting him.
All right, now, not only is Trump, we'll get to this in the next segment because we sent David Webb to the Long Island rally of Donald Trump, but in the Bronx, Ted Cruz did an event. It wasn't really well attended, about 100 people, but he had protesters there. This is what went down.
You're not allowed in the Bronx.
God bless you.
Get out of the Bronx.
This is an immigrant community. We deal with climate change every single day. And he wants to say that it doesn't exist. We're one of the poorest congressional districts in the country. And to receive this right-wing bigot is an insult to the whole community. This is an immigrant community, Ted Cruz. It's an immigrant community, Ted. Immigrant community. If you are anti-immigrant, you're not welcome here. We're at the forefront of climate change, Ted Cruz. We're at the forefront of climate change here. People are dying. People are dying, Ted Cruz.
People are dying from climate change? Well, welcome to New York. I guess there's the welcome wagon if you haven't been here in a while.
Well, look, Sean, I mean, I don't really actually know why Senator Ted Cruz went to the Bronx. Certainly probably not going to be a very super conservative opportunity for him. But there are some redder districts. And as you pointed out in the intro, because New York allocates these delegates according to congressional districts, Ted Cruz does have an opportunity. He's not going to win New York. He's running in 3rd place. But he can chip away, to Monica's point earlier. And to any extent he can deny some delegates to Donald Trump, that's a win for him. And I think it's actually good for Ted Cruz that Kasich is still in this thing. He's kind of upset about it, and I think he seems annoyed by it, but he shouldn't be, because to the extent Kasich also takes Trump votes, which he does, I say, that's still good for any open, contested opportunity.
And I know, for example, in Wisconsin, Monica, that the, quote, establishment got behind Ted Cruz. Isn't it really out of convenience, not a love for Cruz? In other words, that the establishment's plan is to stop Trump first, but they really want to stop Cruz too. And at the end of the day, when it's time, if he gets too close to the nomination, they'll be doing the same thing to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a question of feeding the alligator, hoping the alligator eats you last, kind of thing. But look, the establishment does not like Ted Cruz. That's clear. They're doing this begrudgingly and very reluctantly in terms of supporting him. They don't like him, but they fear Donald Trump. And that's why you have this Stop Trump at all costs movement going on, because they cannot control him. And they know if he gets in, he will smash the existing order and their gravy trains will be over. That episode in the Bronx with Ted Cruz, Sean, when I first saw it, I thought, oh boy, sending him into the Bronx was really ill-advised. And then I looked at the footage again, and I think this is fantastic for Senator Cruz because it shows he's got the right enemies. Remember in Chicago when the Black Lives Matter and Occupy Wall Street crowd shut down the Trump event? That worked to Donald Trump's advantage.
Yeah.
This is working for Ted Cruz in the same kind of way. He went into the Bronx to meet with evangelical pastors. These protesters showed up, and actually this works for Cruz because it shows that he is aggravating the exact right people.
All right, Herman Cain, we're going to get into this whole Rule 40 battle and debate, which should be changed by the Rules Committee before the convention. But a lot of people are nervous because prominent people that we'll get into, John Boehner, for example, has talked about Scott Walker. Paul Ryan, and Scott Walker's talked about Paul Ryan, and then you've got John Kasich's whole strategy, and Karl Rove has weighed in. A lot of us, quote, establishment people are very clear that they don't want either one of these guys, Trump or Cruz. If the establishment tries behind the scenes to disenfranchise the voters who went to these contests and went to caucuses and pulled the lever for these candidates, what is the outcome of that going to be?
The end of the Republican Party, period. That's what that would mean. And this is the message that I've been trying to get across to these so-called establishment people. Monica has been so sweet and politically correct. I'm going to boil it down to this. They hate Donald Trump. They just dislike Ted Cruz. That's what it boils down to. And their hate for Donald Trump is so strong, they are willing to destroy the Republican Party.
If one of the two has a lead in delegates, states won, and votes, and they bypass that person, but they didn't get to 1237, how angry do you think the supporters of that candidate will be?
Extremely angry. If Reince Priebus and the Rules Committee stick with 40B, as you indicated, I think everything would be okay. But if the Rules Committee meets and decides to suspend 40B, then it is the end of the Republican Party, because what it will be saying to the voters is that your vote does not count.
They're saying drop dead.
They do that on the Democrat side. The Democrats don't have an election going on. Yeah. They have a selection going on because the fix is in for Hillary, and Bernie is just a puppet challenger. Period.
All right, guys, good to see you all. And coming up, well, we'll talk about the idea of what a contested convention will look like. We'll talk about Rule 40B that Herman Cain was just talking about. Will that determine the party's nominee? We'll explain that, and also coming up tonight.
How else would you have security without barriers like a wall?
I think you have to develop much more positive relationships with people.
David Webb went out with the protesters outside of Donald Trump's rally in Long Island last night. What are they so upset about? We'll show you the video. It's pretty entertaining. Plus,
I don't think you are qualified if you have supported virtually every disastrous trade agreement which has cost us millions of decent paying jobs.
Bernie Sanders saying Hillary's not qualified. Things are getting really ugly on the Democratic side. So we'll get to that. And also Juan Williams, Doug Schoen will weigh in as we continue on this busy news night tonight here on Hannity. And welcome back to Hannity. All right, the odds of a contested Republican convention in July are now growing, and according to a new report from the Washington Post, Donald Trump is planning to hire, quote, seasoned operatives to help navigate a possible convention battle. But there's also been a lot of talk about what rules are going to be adopted in Cleveland, like, for example, Rule 40B, which was temporarily put into place at the 2012 convention and states in part, quote, each candidate for nomination for President of the United States and Vice President of the United States shall demonstrate the support of a majority of the delegates from each of 8 or more states severally prior to the presentation of the name of that candidate for nomination. So what does that all mean? Here with the reaction, Chairman of the American Conservative Union, Matt Schlapp, and Senior Correspondent at the Washington Examiner, David Drucker. Good to see you both. All right, Matt, you were in a meeting apparently discussing how a lot of this is going to go down. A lot of speculation about what happened in that meeting. Can you share with us what happened and what was said?
Yeah, of course. I mean, first of all, the RNC and Chairman Reince Priebus, they're trying to be fair to everybody in this process, and they're trying to answer as many questions as possible that people have, because, Sean, people have a lot of questions. They want to know if there's going to be something, untoward that could happen that could deny the front runner the nomination. I think what the RNC is trying to make clear to everybody is that the delegates at this convention in 2016 are being selected now. Those are the delegates who are going to determine the rules that take place at this convention.
All right, but I guess there's legitimate reason for concern. Why? John Boehner says, you can nominate anybody you want on the floor of the convention. And he wants Paul Ryan. In a private meeting, I'm told Scott Walker suggested the same thing. Karl Rove talked about somebody that hadn't run as a consensus candidate. There's been numerous articles written about Paul Ryan being that possible nominee. John Kasich's entire strategy is based on a contested convention and leapfrogging over people with millions or more votes, states won, and hundreds of more delegates. So there's real reason for people to sense that there's something untoward about to happen.
That's exactly right. Look, I think the Trump campaigns, the Cruz campaign, and all their supporters, they ought to watch this carefully. The rules that get set will help determine what happens, but it comes down to one very clear principle. It's 50% plus one of the delegates to this convention are going to pick this nominee. So these campaigns have to run, in essence, two campaigns. They have to win as many states and as many delegates as they can in these states, and then they have to run a campaign with the delegates that are getting slated in all these states, and that will be actually in Cleveland, and they got to make sure they hold on to their delegates and can get to this 50% plus one threshold.
All right, David, let's go back to Rule 40 for a second.
All right.
Because I think the question comes up, do you need to be considered for nomination, as of now, 8-state majority? Do you need that 8-state threshold to be considered to be a nominee? Because if you do, there's only two people that qualify, and that would be Donald Trump and Ted Cruz.
Right. And so right now, technically, you do not, because as of yet, the Rules Committee for the 2016 convention hasn't been seated and hasn't met. Now, I think it's very likely that you're going to have Trump loyalists and Cruz loyalists as delegates on the Rules Committee, and they're going to push for a reauthorization of Rule 40B. Why? Because it keeps Kasich out, and it means only one of them is going to be the nominee. And by the way, it also means that if you haven't run and you haven't won any delegates in the states, you're not eligible to be placed in nomination on the convention floor. That's what this rule is all about. But technically, until the rules package is passed by this committee...
Isn't it kind of dumb to set the rules for the convention after the voting has taken place?
Whether it is, Sean, whether it is dumb or not, this is how it has happened every 4 years. Forever. It's just that for the last 40 years, it hasn't mattered because only one candidate has been placed in nomination on the convention floor. Rule 40B only exists because 4 years ago, the pro-Romney forces didn't want to be embarrassed and look like there was a divisive convention when Ron Paul's name was placed in nomination, even though he never would have won.
Now, Matt, George Will had a good column out today where he points out that the person that's actually winning this ground game and fighting that delegate fight is Ted Cruz. And he's going there. They're having conversations apparently with every delegate about second and third votes now. And I don't know if Donald Trump and John Kasich are, but according to Will, they're not to the extent the Cruz is. Here's the question. Let's say that candidate A, rather than mentioning names, has 1,230 or let's say 1,200 delegates going into the convention bound on the first vote. Let's say candidate B has 800 or 850. Let's say candidate C has 200. Now, if on the first ballot, candidate A, who has a significant lead but doesn't have 1,237, doesn't win, and either B or C candidate end up getting the nomination, don't you think candidate A supporters are going to be pissed off and maybe not show up in November?
Yeah, no, I think all of this is potentially a big problem. But, Sean, I think it's better if candidate B, the candidate who's got the second most delegates, actually gets the nomination than this absurd notion that we would have a Cleveland candidate.
What if it's 300 or 400 delegate difference and they still don't go with candidate A?
Look, I think it's a big problem. I agree with you. I think, look, here's what the history has shown us, which is, Ronald Reagan couldn't make up 100 delegate difference in 1976. So the idea that Trump has I'm going to use a name. Trump has a pretty big lead here. If he had 200 or 300 delegate lead and he didn't get the nomination, I think he's going to be upset and everyone else is. Now, Sean, here's the key. In 1976, Ronald Reagan lost on that first ballot. He put his arm around Gerald Ford. He endorsed Gerald Ford. and he helped bring everyone together. If we don't get that moment, we're in big trouble.
If we don't get that moment, so that means the Cruz supporters that hate the Trump supporters
right.
and the Trump supporters that hate the Cruz supporters, you're saying if they don't come together,
that's right,
it's going to be a disaster.
It's going to be a disaster.
I think
if we don't, we're going to get the second reign of the Clintons.
I agree with you. Thanks for being with us. All right, I hope that clears that up for you. It's confusing, very confusing. Coming up next on this busy news night tonight on Hannity.
You're here protesting Donald Trump?
Yes.
What don't you like about him?
I don't like the hate that's been distributed amongst this whole campaign.
So last night we sent David Webb to speak once again with left-wing agitators. They were protesting outside a Trump rally in Long Island, New York. We'll play you that tape coming up and later tonight.
I don't think you are qualified if you have supported virtually every disastrous trade agreement which has cost us millions of decent-paying jobs.
Bernie Sanders saying again and again Hillary Clinton's not qualified to be the president of the United States. Things are getting nasty in the Democratic race. We'll check in with Juan Williams and Doug Schoen and much more later tonight on Hannity. All right, welcome back to Hannity. So last night, Donald Trump had a huge rally in Long Island, New York, and naturally another horde of left-wing agitators showed up to protest the GOP frontrunner, but we wanted to find out exactly what they're so unhappy and angry about, so we bravely sent David Webb once again into the middle of these demonstrations to find out the answer. Let's take a look.
Honestly, I don't really want a racist in office.
What has he done that makes him a racist?
Listen to how he talks.
He wants to deport people who aren't like him.
He's not a socialist like Bernie Sanders. He's not Hillary Clinton.
USA! 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 Why are you supporting Donald Trump?
Oh, man, come on. He's the man. I mean, seriously. We're going to build a wall. We're going to stop immigration.
Border security is racist, according to you?
It's not that border security is racist, sir. It's the whole, he wants to make Mexico pay for the wall.
How else would you have security without barriers like a wall?
I think you have to develop much more positive relationships with people.
You're here protesting Donald Trump?
Yes.
What don't you like about him?
I don't like the hate that's been distributed amongst this whole campaign.
He doesn't represent the America that I like.
You are supporting a person who hates women, hates Latinos, hates blacks, and hates Muslims. You're supporting a hater.
There's a lot of talk about Donald Trump, and people accuse him of having a problem with women. You're 3 women. What do you say to that?
We love him.
Trump! He's for women. I mean,
Well, you're a woman for Trump.
You better believe it.
He's just that kind of guy that America so deserves. Politics is not a toy for rich jerks to play with in our country.
He's a walking, bad advertising slogan.
Here with reaction, former NYPD Detective Bo Dietl, from the New York Civil Rights Coalition, Mike Myers, and the man in the middle of it. We risk his life every time we do this, Fox News contributor and Sirius XM Patriot Radio host David Webb. So what is their main beef? What is it,
They don't have a main beef.
What if you don't build the wall?
What it is they repeat the same thing. I went to Wisconsin. They were basically clueless. Here they were angry, clueless, and less well-dressed. That's the only way I can put it. You've got a bunch of people who can't give me a policy. They can't tell me what he said, when he said it. You get the one guy, the anarchist guy, who, he's walking around with the sign. But I'll tell you something funny that played out, and I wish we could have gotten it, but we were on the other side. They're yelling Nazi and all, Trump is a Nazi and all this, and then a group of Jews come walking by.
That support Trump.
That support Trump.
Yeah.
That was a little bit of an awkward moment out there.
Wow.
But essentially, Sean, you had the New York progressives, you had all the groups out there. But when you ask them specifics, they can't answer you.
Mike, you're even though you claim you're a Democrat.
I'm a registered Democrat, and I am a liberal.
All right. Well, sorry to hear that.
I know.
Does this not embarrass you as a liberal?
As a liberal, anytime someone talks an ad hominem attacks on people, it embarrasses me. And when the left doesn't come and defend the right to free speech, it also embarrasses me. Like you have all these organizations, they will not defend the people's right to listen to Donald Trump. They will not defend the people.
You like Trump?
It's not a question of whether I like. I'm nonpartisan. My point is that
Would you vote for Trump?
I will exercise my vote with my conscience, but I do not
what does
vote.
Your conscience tell you?
I do not vote the Democratic Party line, and I do not vote anybody just because of political affiliation. But let me say this. This is my reaction to this is so what? And secondly, so is the more of the same.
Here's the thing. How many people went to the rally last night? How many thousands?
He had over 10,000 people.
And how many people were out?
Maybe it tops 200. But
That's why I say so what.
But here's
the point
thing.
is they did the same thing to Mitt Romney, the anti-woman thing,
here's the
anti-Hispanic thing.
Let me get Bowen. Hang on. Let me get Bowen.
Just one point before you go to Bo. Look, these are people who are casting votes. If they don't know what they're even voting on, that's dumber and stupider than anything. Whether you support Bernie or not,
you know what's happening here? You know, a few things that Donald's a friend of mine, almost 40 years I know him. Sometimes he does have no filter and say something, but is that really his meaning behind it? And if you know Donald, he loves women. When you say that he hates women, I know Donald, he loves the most beautiful woman. Now you have these protesters there. Hey, look, we have a great country here. You don't like Donald Trump? You don't vote for him. You don't try to stop someone else from expressing their views. And these people that were at his rallies,
but they're incoherent.
Yeah, but they don't even know what they're fighting against.
Okay, so let me give you another example.
Now you got this group, this Black Lives Matter. They're going after Bill Clinton today.
They're a hate group.
They hate everything.
All right, let me play this. Now, Bill Clinton contradicted Hillary Clinton on the idea that things are great. He says everything's coming apart in the world, and then he's confronted by Black Lives Matters in Philly. Watch these two together.
Right.
Keep in mind, unlike when I became president, a lot of things are coming apart around the world now. We'd like to just think about our economic issues, but you got to worry about a collapse in Europe dragging back the American economy. You've got to worry about all these, the largest number of refugees since World War II. And all this stuff comes home. I like protesters, but the ones that won't let you answer are afraid of the truth. That's a simple rule. Be afraid. Be very, very afraid. I don't know how you would characterize the gang leaders who got 13-year-old kids hopped up on crack and sent them out onto the street to murder other African-American children. Maybe you thought they were good citizens. She didn't. She didn't. You are defending the people who kill the lives you say matter. Tell the truth.
Yeah, what's interesting about that, that's almost another Sister Soldier moment. Something, remember, Obama invited Black Lives Matter into the White House. Real quick, your reaction.
Okay, so real quick, look at Chicago, where they've dropped their interdictions from about 157,000 to 20,000. Murder rates are up this year. It's incredible. Bill Clinton has that Sister Soldier moment because the reality is what people live.
What if Donald Trump said that, Mike Myers?
Look, Donald Trump is saying enough. Believe me, he's saying enough. The point is here that we've got to stop this nonsense of that. If you don't agree with me, you're a racist. If you don't agree with me, you're anti-Hispanic.
But
if you agree with I can't get a chance
We've been talking because I'm demonized. We've been talking about. We talk about on your show. I think it's up to 135 African American kids are killed in Chicago. Black Lives Matter. Well, where in the hell aren't they over in Chicago demonstrating on those poor kids?
They don't care. They don't care about Ferguson.
They care about politics.
Ferguson voted Tuesday night, real quick. They voted Tuesday night to raise taxes to pay for the $1 million costs from the DOJ that they imposed. They got a brand new police chief. I talked to Mayor Knowles. They got a $2.9 million shortfall. Where's Al Sharpton? Where's Black Lives Matter? Where's Obama? Where's Loretta Young?
Thank you all.
No, I said it. Loretta Lynch.
Coming up next tonight on Hannity.
I don't think you are qualified if you have supported virtually every disastrous trade agreement which has cost us millions of decent paying jobs.
Now the Democratic race is turning ugly. Senator Bernie Sanders lists the reasons why Hillary Clinton is not qualified to be president. Juan Williams, Doug Schoner next. Then later, Hillary Clinton tried to be an average New Yorker today, and she actually tried to ride the subway. Big problem, though. She didn't know they removed tokens 13 years ago, and we now have Metro cards. She couldn't get in. We'll continue. We've got the video. And welcome back to Hannity. The Democratic race for the White House has gotten very nasty in recent days. Now, yesterday in Philadelphia, Bernie Sanders had this to say about his rival, Hillary Clinton. Take a look.
I don't think that you are qualified if you get $15 million from Wall Street through your super PAC. I don't think you are qualified if you have voted for the disastrous war in Iraq. I don't think you are qualified if you have supported virtually every disastrous trade agreement which has cost us millions of decent-paying jobs.
All right, by the way, Hillary responded earlier today, and here's what she said.
Look, I don't know why he's saying that, but I will take Bernie Sanders over Donald Trump or Ted Cruz anytime. So let's keep our eye on what's really at stake in this election.
All right, here with reaction, Democratic strategist, Fox News contributor Doug Schoen, author of We the People, the modern-day figures who have reshaped and affirmed the Founding Fathers' vision of America, co-host of The Five, Juan Williams. Really, Hillary started it, though. I'm not even sure he's a Democrat. Then, anytime you see James Carville, the raging Cajun, the pit bull, they send him out, and he went out there, and he said Sanders fails the loyalty test for Democrats. Then Sanders punched back.
No, it was even worse than that, because then Hillary said, I'm not sure, given his background, where has he been? Where has he gone? What experiences does he have that would lead you to think he's ready to be president? Now, she says that doesn't mean that she said he wasn't qualified, but Bernie took it that way, and he punched back.
Yeah, and by the way, it's one thing to say, that maybe you're better qualified. She's saying she's not qualified.
Right. Sean, there's something missing here. Let's be honest. Let's be straight with the viewers. The major issue is trust and integrity, and Bernie has not mentioned emails. Sean, if he's serious about winning, he will raise issues of trust and integrity and emails. He hasn't, and I can't understand why.
Okay. Well, let me give you a suggestion. He doesn't raise it because Democrats don't want to hear it. It would not help him with Democrats. It would help him maybe with independents. I could see that, Doug. And it certainly would help him in a general election with Republicans. But he's running for the primaries to win the Democratic nomination.
But the crowds were screaming when he said after each issue, she's not qualified, she's not qualified. Now, what's interesting, out of Wisconsin, 25% of Democrats there, Bernie supporters won't support Hillary.
Well, and the other thing is on trust and integrity. Certainly you make a good point, Juan, but on trust and integrity in Wisconsin, I think it was like 75-25, 80-20 Bernie Sanders. The larger integrity issue is where he has to go. Certainly his crowd is motivated. I think, Sean, though, Hillary's still ahead in New York. I think she's going to win New York and ultimately get the nomination.
But she's fallen 40 points in New York. Now it's a race in New York.
It is.
And he was actually born in Brooklyn, New York.
But he's not saying that.
Oh, yes, he is. He said, by the way, he's the son of Brooklyn. He had Jeff Weaver on TV over the weekend saying he's the son of New York, born in New York. He knows the rough and tumble of New York. And if that's the kind of campaign they want to run, he's fully prepared to run.
Well, let me just do this. Doug, you're talking to the audience. Let me talk to the audience. Spoiler alert. Hillary Clinton's not only going to win New York, she's going to win the nomination.
Right, but and
I'm going to tell you, this is why Bernie Sanders has to be careful. Bernie Sanders is doing so well. He's exceeding all expectations.
6 of last 7.
He's raising more money than Hillary Clinton.
82-18 in Alaska, 70-30 Washington, 73-27.
But I'm telling you, and I'm telling this audience to be straight with you, Bernie can't afford to anger the Democratic base and make them think.
Hang on one second.
Remember what Hillary said. She'd prefer
Bernie can't afford to burn
Trump.
No, she can't afford to anger his base, and I'll tell you why.
Yes.
Because if you look at Bernie Sanders, you strip away that corrupt system that you guys have in the Democratic Party. And it's corrupt. The superdelegates. Superdelegates. Okay, 460, whatever, to 31.
A word in here. Look, first of all, you're right. She can't afford to offend the left.
Correct.
I would also say that, Juan, he's doing a little better than she ever expected. And it's a big if, she loses New York, this will be a new race. It's a 10-point race now. Enthusiasm was highest for Bernie and won 18,000 people last Friday in the South Bronx. He's going to get 20 to 40,000.
You can get that sensation, but there's no way,
It's not a sensation. It's the real world.
Even if, let's say, he wins New York.
Yeah.
Then does he go on and does he win Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Does he go on and then win California? And then
the answer would be yes.
The answer is yes.
And get the super delegates. Well,
yes.
You know what this is? This is, somebody said, this is not just running a straight and poker.
By the way, can I just remind? Can I remind you?
If he wins New York.
Can I remind you? She's not running against some young, new, fresh-faced, dynamic, articulate.
Sean Hannity.
Hang on.
She's running against the socialists.
She's running against. That's my point. She's running against an angry 74-year-old curmudgeon socialist.
I've worked for the Clintons. I've worked for Hillary and
Sorry
more.
to
Bill.
hear about that.
I'm trying. I know, but you know what? I'm proud of working for Bill Clinton. But
Bill Clinton. What about Hillary?
But this is the real world.
Are you proud of working for Hillary?
I'm certainly supporting her. I did not choose.
Are you proud that you
work
for her?
I am happy to have worked for Mike Bloomberg this cycle. Let's leave it there.
Wow.
This is a competitive election, Sean. It's very close, and the testiness we see, Juan, that is Hillary getting nervous. It's trademark Clinton.
Good to see you both.
I think that's media spin. I don't think there's any reason
media
to be
spin. He's a Democrat.
I've been in the back rooms with this woman.
Oh, my.
I know how she operates.
And how is that, Doug?
Not kinder and gentler.
Coming up, Hillary Clinton tries to act like a New Yorker. It didn't work out so well. She tried to ride the subway. By the way, had some tough time swiping her little Metro card there. Is there really a better way to win the battle for the Empire State? Jedediah Bila, Jessica Tarlov, they react next. Welcome back to Hannity. So the Democratic primary in New York is less than 2 weeks away. Earlier today, Hillary took a ride on the New York City subway. Well, as you can see, only after seriously struggling to get through the turnstile. But not to worry, Hillary did eventually make it onto the subway, where she was surrounded by Secret Service, reporters, and, of course, a couple of fans. So is she trying to act like the average New Yorker? Remember, this is a woman who hasn't driven a car in over 20 years. Joining us now with reaction, Democratic strategist Jessica Tarlov and Fox News contributor Jedediah Bila. Look, she doesn't use the subway.
She was on it 2 years ago, and Bernie Sanders thinks we still use tokens. She's winning.
But Bernie Sanders hasn't lived in New York. And let's be fair. She didn't know how to swipe.
No.
Well, she must
Honestly,
think it's tokens, too, because she couldn't swipe it.
And sometimes my card doesn't work. I heard a rumor that actually there might have been insufficient fare, which would have been that campaign age.
That's really a big deal.
No, but sometimes it's difficult. That doesn't make her unqualified.
I've never had a problem swiping my Metro card.
I have a problem all the time. Every time I swipe, that happens to me, so I have to defend her. Also, though, no, think about it. If she were to just hop on the subway, you know how she would be harassed. They would have people like you following her. Hillary, talk to me about your email scandal. Hillary, why are you such a terrible candidate? Hillary, why are you so unlikable?
Secret Service will be ordered to take me out. Are you kidding? I don't think I'd last 30 seconds. Now, you have a fun opportunity tomorrow. You're going to be guest hosting on The View.
Yes.
And Bernie Sanders is the guest.
Bernie Sanders, and I have great
Does he know you're going to be there?
I tweeted it out. You know, he knows I'm not feeling the burn, as they say. But I have some good questions for him.
I feel sorry for him. You may be surprised. Because why? Because the corrupt Democratic primary system has given 460 some odd super delegates to Hillary and only 31 for poor Bernie.
Not given, they chose. I mean, it's not forced upon you.
But it's not the people choosing, is it?
No, the people do not choose. The super delegates make the decision for themselves. But
strip away the party apparatus.
Just 200, which is still a mighty lead.
She has 460 something of them, and he has 31.
Oh, I meant 200 pledged delegate lead. Yes,
but she only has a 200 pledged delegate lead in the voting. So the people are out of sync with the superdelegate corrupt infrastructure of the Democratic Party.
That 200 pledged delegate lead. 202 is actually 2.45 million more votes that Hillary Clinton has gotten than Bernie Sanders. Yes.
202 delegates, but she has almost all the superdelegates.
So maybe they'll switch. Honestly, if Bernie Sanders comes into the convention as the front runner, which is what Barack Obama did, and they switch then, maybe they will, but I do not see that happening.
I feel that, don't you think Bernie's getting robbed?
Listen, if I were a big government girl, no question, I would be voting for Bernie Sanders.
All right, so you're going to ask Bernie tomorrow. You tell Bernie that Sean Hannity thinks he's getting robbed by the Democratic Party.
So I'll tell him you feeling the burn, Sean Hannity?
I'm feeling the. Listen, I don't like corruption. If they're usurping the will of the people and disenfranchising the people, it's corrupt.
Well, they may switch. And think about it. This guy has been able to come in basically out of nowhere, and he's stolen her thunder. He's won a lot of recent states. She is worried about him. She was afraid to debate him at first, so he should be pretty confident.
I'm looking at my numbers. It's actually 250 that she's ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, but still, you never know.
Well, it doesn't matter.
He's won 6 out of 7.
Listen,
he's competing in New York in a way that nobody thought.
I am not the type of Hillary person who in any way wants to denigrate what Bernie Sanders has accomplished.
Do you think she's an honest person?
An honest person? Yes, I do actually.
Do you think she's trustworthy? Because
do I trust her with the policies and with leading this country? Yes.
She's
not going to steal my stuff either.
65% of Americans think she's dishonest and untrustworthy.
And she has close to an 80% favorability with Democrats.
Wrong?
Are they wrong? You know, I don't really know what to say.
That's a bad question.
I do. I do. She has no transparency and she's a liar.
No, that's not it. I really think that when you've been in office for 30 years, I understand why each and every person is entitled to their opinion.
So the 65% of Americans that think she's dishonest and untrustworthy are wrong.
Honestly, that is not something that I can tell you about how they should feel about it. I know that personally.
Isn't that a horrible question I'm asking you?
No, it's not as bad as when you're like, list her accomplishments and then
Can you list her accomplishments?
Isn't the time up for the segment?
Yeah, the time's up. All right.
Feel the burn.
That's all the time we got. Jedediah is going to be defending Bernie tomorrow.
Listen,
anyway,
tune in.
We need your help. Our question of the day is next. All right, time for our question of the day. Do you think either Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton, either of them, is qualified to be president? No, but we want to know what you think. Go to Facebook.com/Sean Hannity, at Sean Hannity on Twitter. Let us know what you think. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have left this evening. Thank you for being with us. Yes, we'll see you back here tomorrow night. Thanks for being with us.